welcome to the new JFK Show, number 124. Now, the JFK team are all on their way to Dallas, Texas. Larry Rivera is going to be the first speaker at the Judy Baker Conference this week. I think it's at Friday at 1 or 2 o'clock. Oh, it should be a little bit later. Then Dr. Fetzer will be speaking on Zapruder film. Before I get to that, Larry will be talking about Oswald in the doorway. We've busted the whole wall down as far as that's concerned. Robert Groden will not be at the conference, and it's the best lineup I've ever seen. All right, so then Dr. Fetzer is going to be talking about Zapruder film alteration, which means that Groden doesn't need to be there. So that's what's going on. Now tonight, we're going to continue on with the James Bookout and Jack Ruby not being the person shooting Oswald. Now, Dr. Sinkay, you're really tearing down walls and changing history. So go ahead and turn it over to you. And,
all right, very good. Well, let me make a couple of preliminary remarks while you're getting the pictures, Gary. The main thing I want to talk about tonight is that my conviction that it's very likely that Oswald was not actually shot in that televised bit that the world saw. I think it was fake. I think that Bookout must have shot a blank, and I think Oswald was killed after that. I don't think
it's blood splotch.
We're going to go into all the various reasons why, and the absence of blood is the first one I want to mention, because that's the one that others have mentioned and sort of honed in on, and for years, long before I came along, that they've done that. Okay, but I absolutely know, as well as I know anything, that Oswald was killed. I mean, they had an interview with the surgeon at Parkland Hospital, Dr. Tom Shires, and, you know, I've never seen more of a straight shooter than him. I just don't believe for 1 second that they recruited him.
So between getting in the ambulance and the hospital, it happened.
All right, so here's what I say about that, Gary, and I'm not going to claim to know for sure, but either they took him into like a soundproof room in the police station and killed him there, maybe with a silencer on the gun. I'm thinking that maybe somebody, you know, put some chloroform over his mouth to knock him out right away. And then they took him in there and they very carefully, because I'll tell you something, you know, that shot, oh my gosh, it was almost surgical. I mean, it went into his into his left rib cage, and it went directly across from one side to the other, and the bullet settled under the skin on the right side of his rib cage. So that means that when the actual shot was done, somebody had to stand very squarely and just put the gun against his rib cage and fire, you know, right into him very squarely. Now, the guy in the garage, he could never have gotten such a square shot because he was coming at an angle from the front and from the side, so he was approaching diagonally, and so and you can see the gun is aimed diagonally at Oswald. So if he had fired, the bullet would have had a diagonal course through Oswald's body, but that bullet didn't. It really traveled just straight across from the left side to the right. So that's another reason why I don't think that it occurred. But anyway, what I'm saying is that either he was killed in the police station or he was killed between the police station and the hospital. And, you know, it's going to take a lot more thought and research to really kind of try to figure that out. But one of those two options definitely was shot and definitely was fatally shot, and everything that happened at the hospital with the doctors was real. So
right, yeah, the doctors were reporting exactly what they saw. The autopsy was real. It had to happen on the way because all the doctors were straight.
They were straight. Oh, absolutely. All the doctors were straight. But wait a second. I have one more caveat I want to make before we begin. And that is that just in case that if there were any chance that I'm wrong and that Oswald really was shot in the garage, that it does not change anything else. In other words, it's still Bookout the shooter. It would only mean that Bookout really was a murderer and that he killed Oswald. And it's still the same that Ruby was innocent and that he was framed and that he was just basically conned into thinking that he had done it. Now, before we begin, I'm going to just make a point about something that's been on my mind for the last few days, and that is the awareness that Ruby, in making that run to the Western Union office to wire some cash to his stripper, that he took his beloved dog with him, put it in the car, and took it for the ride to the Union Station. Well, obviously, if he was planning to shoot Oswald, he would not have brought his dog, because he would have known that the moment he shot Oswald that he would have been apprehended by police, and then his life as he knew it was over, finished, kaput. So not only would he not have brought his dog, but he would have made arrangements for the dog. I mean, he loved the dog. He used to refer to the dog as his wife. Now, I'm sure he didn't mean anything literal about that. I'm not saying he was into bestiality, but he just was, joking about how fond he was of this dog. Obviously, it was a female.
Yeah, you can be. I had a dog for 17 years. I have a question, Ralph. So you're saying it's possible that Ruby went into the garage and they already had possibly the film, and then they just said it was.
No, I think it went the other way, Gary. No, it went the other way. Ruby came first. Basically, I think, and this is another thing that I just discovered yesterday for myself. I'm sure others have known it. But when Ruby first testified, he said, "Yeah, I went into the Western Union office at 10:15." And then somebody pointed out, no, wait a second, the shooting occurred at 11:21. Oh, so then he changed it and said, oh, then I guess it was 11:15. But, I think it's more likely that he was right the first time, or at least he was close to being right. I think what happened, Gary, is that he went to the Western Union office. This was before the televised shooting. He walked down Main Street. He entered that ramp, and I didn't send it to you, but I have a picture now where you can really have a perfect open view of what Ruby actually negotiated to get down there. All it was just basically a tunnel that was open to the street with a driveway, and there was a car parked there, a police car, and there was a policeman in it. His name was Lieutenant Sam Pierce, and Oswald recognized him. And there was another policeman there who was talking to Sam Pierce, whom Ruby did not recognize. And so he walked right by them, and he had to. It's a narrow ramp. The car is parked there. He's going right by it to enter the ramp. So obviously he saw them, and he close enough to identify the man. They must have saw him, and they did not stop him. They would have stopped anybody else. He was probably the only person in the world that could have gotten by that spot, but he got by it. They had the car phone in the police car. They probably radioed whoever was down there and said, okay, he's coming now. And so they waltzed Oswald out. And what happened was, and we have this account directly from Ruby. He said he was standing there. He didn't recognize any of the reporters. They brought Oswald out, and then he yelled at Oswald, "You killed my president, you rat." He said those were his exact words. "You killed my president, you rat." And then he said the next thing he knew, he was on the ground. And we know he was on the ground because he got a scrape on his forehead, which you can see in his mugshot and some of the other images. And so they kind of pushed him down the way you would expect police to do if they have a hostile person, which is pushing him face down to the ground. And once they get him down, what they do is put the arms behind the guy's back, and they put handcuffs on him. And
you mean they don't put a bag over your head?
No. And then after that, I'm thinking that they rushed him out of there. They brought him into the police jail station. And I don't remember the name, but Ruby mentioned the policeman who started interrogating him. And then I think they just sort of quickly straightened things out. And then they did the second version, which involved book out. And they just basically went through it all, a dog and pony show. and it happened, you know, some minutes later. I don't know. I don't know exactly how many. It's really anybody's guess.
Are you saying it was filmed 2 times?
Well, no, it was not filmed. Ruby's was not filmed. Only the one with Book Out was filmed. The one with Ruby was not filmed.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that there was no shot for it because the shot with Book Out was heard on the street, and there were people on the street who said they heard it, but nobody said they heard a second shot that came before. So therefore, there was no shot at all when at the time that Ruby was arrested. So, but anyway, here's the thing: he remembered what he said. He remembered what he said before. He remembered what he said after the scuffle started, and therefore, you know, he had his wits about him and his memory working if he remembered those things. So why didn't he remember shooting Oswald? He never at any time said, and then I pulled the trigger. And when he was asked about that, all he would say was, it's a blur, it's a blur. Well, I'll tell you why it's a blur. It's because it never happened at all. The only thing that exists is people telling him that he did it. He didn't do anything of the kind. All right, let's go to the first image, Gary.
Amazing, amazing. Is that the first image with a lack of blood?
I'm not seeing anything.
Oh, we didn't screen share yet.
Okay, yeah, let's get the screen sharing going.
It is. All right, I'll add any pictures that are necessary.
Okay.
Right, so here comes the first one. Seems to be a big white thing.
Yeah, I know. That's it. I want to say a word about it. Okay. All right. Now I mentioned that the biggest, you might say, reason that other people have given for suspecting that this was a phony thing is the fact that there was no blood. I mean, look, you got to remember, Oswald, we know the damage that was done. That bullet tore through his aorta and his vena cava. So it tore through the largest artery and the largest vein in his body. It also tore through his superior mesenteric artery, which is also a very large artery. And remember, these arteries are carrying the blood under high pressure, so it becomes like a fountain. The blood is spurting inside. And then also it went through other very vascular tissues that bleed like sieves. The kidneys, for example, which are full of, you know, vascular channels, and the liver, the pancreas. So all these very vascular tissues, and yet there wasn't a spot of blood anywhere. Eventually they showed us this image. Now this is not from the garage. This is from the floor of the jail station where they supposedly laid Oswald down for a few minutes until the ambulance arrived. So they're claiming that, okay, you want some blood, this is some blood. Well, I would simply point out that there's nothing definitive about this. To my eyes, it does not look like a blood spot. That is not what I would expect the blood spot to look like. If blood from that wound actually, you might say, rolled down his side and got on the floor, what would have happened to it? It would have streaked, and it would not have looked like that. It would have,
what exactly is this image of?
It's an image of the floor. That's just an image of the floor of the, and I cropped it, of course. That's an image of the floor of the jail station, and they're claiming that, yeah, that's a blood stain. But there's absolutely nothing about it that resembles what a blood stain would typically look like. And, you know, we have no reason to actually accept that that is a blood stain. But the point is that even in the garage, I would have expected that in the garage they should have been able to show us a blood stain, but they don't have one. So anyway, this is the most widely cited reason for suspecting and doubting that Oswald really wasn't shot in the garage. Let's go to the next image. All right. This is this is probably one of the most famous photos in the world when it comes to political news photos. This is the
first televised murder.
Yeah, this is the Bob Jackson photo, and they actually awarded him the Pulitzer Prize for this. I don't know how many thousands of dollars he got, but I'm sure it was a lot of money. Now, there's all kinds of problems with this with this photograph. Some of them are just in terms of the story that it's conveying, and some of it has to do with some of the actual structures that we're seeing. But I'm going to start with the idea of the story that we're seeing. Now, this was after the shot. It's absolutely agreed everywhere that this photograph was taken a split second after Oswald was shot. So that means that everybody in this photograph has already heard the blast. And I want to point out that the Colt Cobra Special, 38 Special, is considered a very loud revolver. It really has just a startling...
it's a 38 Special?
38 Special.
I mean, they have bands named after that. You know it means loud.
Yeah, that means, oh, it's loud. I mean, I have a Smith & Wesson 38, which is a snub nose, and I can tell you that it is loud. You know, when I go to the range to shoot it, you know, I've got the earmuffs on, and but even through the earmuffs, it seems loud. And I can just imagine how loud it would be without.
Well, I might be jumping the gun, but isn't he about to shoot him in the wrist?
He's already shot him. According to the story, he has already shot him. Now, here's what I want you to know. We know for an actual fact that the shooter was not facing Oswald at the time he shot him. He was more or less on the side of him, approaching from a diagonal, and he was much more rightward than we're seeing here. What apparently happened is that Bookout pulled the trigger, and then he kind of jumped so that he got to this position, which is where he's facing Oswald directly. This is not the position he was in when he actually shot. He was much more to the side of Oswald when he shot. But anyway, here's the other points I want to make. I wish I had a pointer. I wonder if I could. No, it's not going to work.
I can use my cursor.
Can I use it, or can I tell you what to do with it?
Yeah.
All right, you see this guy with his against the wall here?
Yeah.
That guy right here. All right, yeah, okay, go to him right now. I find it very strange. Here he is clasping his hands. He's just heard a gunshot wound. A gunshot blast, you know, which is a little startling even when you expect it. But when you don't expect it,
you're going to jump.
You think that the guy would, you know, react startled a little bit. But he's
mouth open.
Here. He's got his hand clasped in front of his body, and he hasn't even interrupted his hand clasp. He's still standing there like a Jehovah's Witness with his hands clasped. And the look on his face doesn't show the slightest bit of shock from having heard a blast and for all this commotion. To me, it's completely out of place with what's going on. All right, another example is the guy behind Oswald. Go to the guy in the white hat. That guy. Okay, we know who he is. He's Inspector J.H. Sawyer, and he's a very interesting character because he's one of the first ones who showed up at the book depository. And he's the one who supposedly interviewed the guy who saw Oswald on the 6th floor at the window. And he was standing in the doorway. And here he is here now right behind Oswald. Well, I want to point out that he, too, has just heard this gunshot blast. And he doesn't look like he's reacting to it in his face. And as I look at him, it seems to me like he is looking through those guys at the camera. I'm getting more of a sense that he's posing for the camera, that he's looking and focusing on the guy with the camera and not at Oswald and what's going on in front of him. So that seems out of place. Bring it over to this guy. Hey, is my mouse working? Can you see my mouse?
No, only I can do.
All right. So you bring it over to Tom Pettit here in the white coat.
Oh, you mean, yeah, the reporter.
Yeah, right, that guy. Okay. Now, I would say even in his case,
yeah, he's not
reacting to a gunshot. I mean, I expect to see, I want to see, a frightened, startled look. And I'm not kidding.
You expect everyone to act more like the guy with the cigar. See the guy right here?
Yeah.
He seems to be the only one to actually be doing anything like that.
And even go over here to Fritz. Now, Fritz has got his hands out like, I don't know, maybe he's beginning to react, but I would think that the first thing that he would do in response to hearing that blast is to turn around. Now, he does not turn around for quite a while. If you watch him in the films, it takes him a long time. They're already wrestling with Lookout before he turns around. I would think that, you know, the reaction to the gun blast would be instantaneous and he would turn around. So none of these people are really reacting the way they should. All right, now the next thing I want to talk about are some of the structural things that I really just don't like about this this photograph. And I'm going to point them out here, and then we're going to point to some specifics that I have in the other pictures. But first, let's start with Lavelle. You can see Lavelle here in the white suit. I call it his Easter suit. A lot of people have commented how strange it was that here it was late November. He wears the white suit to work 2 days after the president got killed, and also 2 days after his friend J.D. Tippit got killed, a fellow police officer. Seems a little out of place to be wearing that kind of an outfit. He wore a dark suit the day before. He wore a dark suit the day after. What did he need to wear a white suit for on this day? Well, one might suspect that it's because he wanted to make sure he created contrast between himself and Oswald, because Oswald was going to be the target, not him. But here's what I want you to do. Here's what really bothers me is his left arm. Do you see his left arm there? It's coming down, and he's got his hand buried in Oswald's pants. Now, this is a very, very strange thing to do. And Gary, you know, you're the only one here. I mean, I thought maybe we would have others here, but I'm going to just put it all on you now. But I'll assume you've never been arrested, and I haven't either. But imagine if you were arrested and, you know, you were in handcuffs, say, and let's say a cop was walking you somewhere. And all of a sudden the cop put his hands in your pants, put a hand in your pants. And if you look close there, you can see that he's got his fingers buried inside Oswald's pants there. All you're seeing is the knuckle. You're seeing the knuckle of his index finger, but you're not seeing the length of his fingers, and so all of that is buried inside Oswald.
Got a grip.
Yeah, the grip. It's like he's gripping Oswald at his pants, and it's a very, very strange thing to do. And I would think that Oswald would have reacted to it. Like if you're walking along and all of a sudden the guy puts his hand in your pants, then you'd say something like, "What are you doing?" So it's a very strange thing. I defy anybody to find another example of this from anywhere else in police work where a policeman did that, put his hand in the subject's pants. But here's what I want you to do now, Gary. Take your cursor and run it down his right arm on the outside here. Just run down the upper arm, just the upper arm, just the upper arm, okay? I want you to notice that that arm is straight, it's continuous. There's no glitch in it. There's no break in it. Go to the outside of the arm. In other words, the outside. That's it. Go up and down the outside.
This way?
Yeah, just the upper arm, just as far as the elbow. Okay, that's all basically one straight line, right?
Yeah.
Okay, go to the right arm now, and I want you to notice that there's a glitch there. No, I'm sorry. Go to the left arm. There's a glitch there where it sort of develops a little bit of a bevel. Do you see that?
Yeah, it kind of goes in right there.
Yeah, that's right. That little deviation where it just seems to, let's call it a pinch. There's a pinch on that left side that you don't see on the other side. Well, what is that pinch? It shouldn't be there. You know, you've got your arm and you got your forearm, and the only joint is the elbow. And that's much too high to be the elbow. You can see where the shoulder is. It's just a little below the shoulder. So your elbow does not occur a little below your shoulder. So why would he have a pinch right there. Well, he wouldn't. It should be just as straight as the other side. So what I'm going to suggest to you is that everything that we see below the pinch of his arm is fake. That whole thing, that whole extremity. That whole thing. That whole thing, it's fake. They put it in there.
It does look fake.
In other words, the shoulder is real, and that first little bit of upper arm is real. But once it gets to the bevel, then the fakeness starts. They put that in there, and I'll tell you why they put it in there. I told you at the beginning that in this photo, we're supposed to be looking at a man who was fatally shot here, where he's got this horrendous, trauma to his body, and his clothes have been ripped through. But we don't see anything in this photo to show any disruption of him or his clothes. Now, what they're trying to tell you here is that the reason you don't see any disruption is because stuff is covering up the entire area that was disrupted. So you've got Oswald's left arm slapped across his chest, and fortunately you can't see me, so you can look at me. So we're supposed to believe that Oswald was shot in the left rib, and he responded to that by slapping his arm across his chest. Now, I don't think that's a natural response. I don't think it's something that anybody would do. I think that if he was going to do something to cover and protect the area that was shot, that he would do this. You see me? Right, Gary, you looking at me?
I can't see it.
Oh, you don't see me. All right. So
now I can. Now I can.
Okay. All right. And the viewers can see me, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So if he was going to do anything after being shot, it might be something like this. He's not going to do this. I mean, what for? To use his elbow to cover the wound? No, he's not going to do that. He's going to do this or just this. So this whole idea that he would react like that is ridiculous. But according to the so-called experts, this photo was taken only 0.3 of a second after the blast. So it's right on
the second.
0.3. So how could he even have time to get his hand all the way up there? So what I'm saying is this, that they created that artificial appendage on Lavelle to bring it down just to cover up more of this area. So you've got Oswald's arm and his other arm jutting out, and then you got Lavelle's arm, and all of that is there to basically justify why we're not seeing any disruption of him or his clothing. All right, go to the next picture, Gary. Okay. All right, well, so this is just a close-up of it. And now I want you to notice how much better, though, you can see that bevel on the right. You can actually see you might say the crease in his arm. I mean, yeah, well, in the jacket. You see that crease in the jacket, and then you see how it really has no connection to the part of the jacket that's coming down from his shoulder. Those are totally disconnected. And looking at it large like this, I think it's even more apparent that that is an artificial appendage. Now, another thing we can do is this, is compare the two hands. Notice how his left hand, the one digging into Oswald's pants, looks small compared to the other hand. It also looks like it's just made of wax. It has a very, I don't know, shiny look, like it doesn't really have the texture of skin. It looks very different than the other hand. However, here's another important observation. Notice that the two hands are about the same level. Run the cursor back and forth horizontally. That's right, that's right. Okay, the two hands are at the same level. Now, what that tells me, since the hands are at the same level, is that the elbows must be bent about the same. Let me demonstrate. I think I can do it here. If if I bend my elbows about the same, my hands are at the same level. But if I make the elbows not the same, well, if I straighten one of them, it lengthens the arm and it shortens. I mean, it lowers the hand. So now my hands aren't at the same level anymore. Well, his hands are at about the same level. So that means the elbow should be bent about the same. But the way it looks here is, in other words, his elbow should be, I don't know, right across from like Oswald's wrist is what I would say, is where his elbow would be based on the length we're seeing. But yet, they're making it look like his arm is extended. But if it was extended, it would extend much lower. His hand would be lower and it wouldn't be where it is. So really everything about this is false. It's fake. It's phony. They put that in there just to cover the area of damage. Okay, go to the next one.
All right.
All right, this is just a close-up look at the bevel. And my gosh, look at that. Now, it's a little thing, and I understand that most people would probably never give it a moment's thought, but I am telling you that, he's got one arm. He doesn't have two arms there. He doesn't have a joint in his arm there. There's no, separation there of anything. It's one continuous limb. And there's no reason why that arm should be configured any different than the other arm. It should just be an arm coming down. One continuous.
It looks almost like a cartoon. It looks like a cartoon.
That is bullshit right there. There's no excuse for that. That's what they added. In other words, his arm really was coming down. They added this other thing. Notice that even the color of it it's a little lighter than the surrounding jacket. They didn't quite match that correctly. But that is absolutely wrong. They thought nobody would notice it because it's so small. But hey, we can blow things up. And that crease there, that deviation, that duality shouldn't be there. It is fake. Okay, keep going.
All right, next picture.
Next picture. Whoops, I must have brought that twice. Okay, go to the next one.
Same one.
All right, now I brought this one, and I'm very glad I did. After, you see, what happened was on the very day of the shooting, and just a few hours later, Lavelle did an interview. And he said in the interview that he had a hand, with the way he put it, and I'm going to use the word he used. He said, I had a hand on Oswald's waistband. That's the word he used. Now, the actual fact is that men's pants don't have waistbands. A waistband is a piece of elastic in the pants that basically keeps it snug, and it's sort of an alternative to having a belt. So a lot of times women's pants, if they have a pant, they'll have a waistband so that they can wear it and it doesn't require a belt. But most of the time, men's pants, it does not have a waistband, and a man usually holds up his pants with a belt. And in the olden days, men would sometimes wear suspenders, but it's not really a waistband. But after he said that, they had to conform all of the films to make it look like he had his hand in Oswald's pants the whole time. And this is a frame from one of the films, and it is ridiculous. So we're seeing Lavelle's arm, which is going straight down, and we get the impression that it's going underneath Oswald's arm, which is in black because of the black sweater. And then we're seeing this sausage-like thing that's coiled, and that is anatomically impossible for his forearm to be making such a curved path to supposedly get his hand in Oswald's pant. That is just a totally fake image.
It would break your wrist. It would break your wrist.
Yeah, it would break. Well, that's a good thing. It would definitely break your wrist. He'd be howling in pain if that's what his wrist was doing at that moment in time. It is ridiculous. It is farcical. These people are idiots to think that they could get away with that. That is fake. Okay, keep going. All right, now this is a close-up of the of him, and so you have Oswald. You got Oswald, and he's kind of pushing his right hand, jutting it out. And I want to point out that we know for a fact that he was wearing standard metal handcuffs, you know, the thin gray handcuffs that we're used to seeing. Mm-hmm. And why those handcuffs look so thick and so porcelain and so white, I don't know, but it is not the way they were. And here we have a good look. Now, some people have said that it looked like he had his hand in Oswald's pocket, but no, he did not. First of all, the pocket is further back, so he's nowhere near the pocket. And what I think it implies is that he has the web of his hand. This is the web of the hand. He has the web of his hand lying over the top of the pant, and the fingers are buried inside the pant. He's got his fingers inside the guy's pants, and then the thumb is just coming down, and that's the message of it. But here's another little thing. Look at the way there's sort of like a very weird bead. It almost looks like I don't know, it looks like a point. Get your cursor and just put it where his index finger is supposed to be.
Oswald?
No, on Lavelle. Right, yeah, right at the end. How could that be photographically right? In other words, if he's got his hand bent and he's got his fingers inside Oswald's pants, I can't imagine how it could come to such a point like that. So again, this is just more fakery, and you know, they just couldn't get it right, and that was the best that they could do, and it is fake. Okay, go to the next image.
All right. Should be getting a warning at
that one, this one. Okay, now we're kind of going to a different subject here. We're going to the subject of Oswald's hand. This would be his left hand. This is the hand that slapped across his chest. And as soon as I saw that hand, my first thought was that does not look like an anatomical hand. I mean, what would cause the crescent shape of the inside of the hand as it leads up to the thumb? Now, you know, let me see if I can do something to just kind of show my hand, but there's no reason why the trace along the margin there. See that shape? I call it a crescent shape. That is not the shape of a hand. There's nothing remotely natural about that. And then trace it around the thumb, and look how it's such a sharp, look at that sharp bend there. I mean, it's ridiculous. There's no way that's real. Now, another point that I noticed was, look at the size of that thumb. That is a humongous thumb. Whoever owned that thumb should have been one of those, you know, Indian thumb wrestlers. You remember there used to be a game you could play where you try to
Indian thumb wrestling.
But this guy would have been a champ but Oswald did not have hands like that. He had a delicate hand, and I brought a picture of Oswald along, and we can see his thumb, and you'll see that it was nowhere near as big as that. So that part of it is fake. But there's one more thing I want to point out, and that is that this hand is missing a knuckle. As I count the knuckles, you got 1, 2, 3. There's 3 over on this side, and then there's 1 on the thumb. In other words, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a total of 4 knuckles. 1, go ahead, go to the next 2,
3,
and now go to the thumb.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And then 4. Okay, there's a little further back.
1, 2, 3, 4 knuckles on my hand.
All right, so you know, he's missing a knuckle here. You know, a hand is supposed to have 5 fingers, and that means it has 5 knuckles. Go ahead, go to the next picture.
Here we go.
All right. So I brought this one I tell you why I brought this one. Oh, this is funny. All right, so on the left, you see a natural hand. In fact, hey, when I say a natural hand, you know whose hand that is?
Lee Oswald.
Lee Harvey Oswald. That's Marina. That picture was taken in Russia. That is Lee Harvey Oswald. You can see how tiny his thumb was. He did not have a big, humongous, Indian wrestle thumb. But you can see that he's got 5 fingers. You can see the shape of the contour of his hand as it comes around to the thumb. And it doesn't have this weird look that we see on this side. But anyway, let me tell you about this photo on the right. When I complained about the missing knuckle, one of the ops said, "Oh no, you were looking at a fuzzy version of the photo. This is how it really came out." So this is what I call like an X-ray version. It looks, kind of fluorescent. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, "Yeah, he's got 5 knuckles here." Well, actually, I count 6 knuckles here. 1, 2, 3. Let's see if you can count them, Gary. Let's start at this side here. 1, 2, 3, 4, but 5. Let's do it back here. Let's do it back here. Actually, we're going to count tendons. These are all the tendons, the extensor tendons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 extensor. He's got 6 extensor tendons in this hand, even though he's only got 5 fingers. So this is just a piece of crap that somebody came up with. They went overboard. They went too far. It's a ridiculous image. It doesn't even look photographic. And the fact is that other photo is impaired. There's only 4 knuckles on it. It's got that humongous thumb. And again, they're just pathetic clowns. And this is the best they could do. All right, go to the next.
All right, well, let's take our break right there. We're going to go ahead and reconnect with Dr. Ralston K.
Okay.
For James Bookout. We'll be right back.
Moonrock Books. We're a group of scholars, experts, and authors who feel the world really needs saving, and that resisting the American empire is the right thing to do. People are starved for truth. They are given lies. They subsist on lies, but it's not really living. People are not watching TV news. They're ceasing to read newspapers too, because they know by now they will not find it there. The biggest battle being fought anywhere is with information. If the people can receive the truth, they will do the right thing. We are publishing the truth about Sandy Hook, about the Boston bombing, about the moon landings, about the Holocaust, and much, much more. The truth. It falls upon us to fight the empire and save the world. Join us, Moonrock Books.
Coup d'etat in slow motion, connecting the dots between the assassinations of Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme, JFK, Robert Kennedy, and John Lennon. Now available on Amazon and lightonconspiracies.com. Coup d'etat in slow motion.
All right, welcome back to the new JFK Show number 124. So if you're wondering where the JFK team is, they're all en route to Dallas, Texas for the conference. And I think it's going to be a really, really great conference. All right, Dr. Sinclair, let's continue on.
All right, very good. All right, so what we're seeing on the left here is myself. That's me. And I'm trying to duplicate what we're supposed to be seeing on Oswald. So I'm standing and I've got my hand slapped, my left arm and my left hand slapped against my chest and pretty high up. And I just tried. Now, you'll notice that I didn't get my thumb on top of the index finger. And that's because, I don't have a big, humongous thumb like we're seeing on the other side. And I don't think most people do. And so I just let my thumb, you might say, go to its natural neutral position for that arrangement. So anyway, what we can notice here, first of all, is we can easily count my knuckles, and we in fact we can count my fingers. You can see a little bit of the pinky, the ring finger, the middle finger, the index finger, and the thumb. You have no doubt that I have 5. And if you count the knuckles, they're all there plain as day. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the thumb is further down. Now look at the shape of my thumb and compare it to the shape of his thumb. Who has a thumb that's shaped like that? Nobody. You'd be a freak. He actually had a thumb shaped like that. So really, it's just ridiculous, and this is more evidence of it. There's just no way that that's a real hand. Okay, let's go to the next picture.
All right.
All right, so here, just to dig up a little bit, I went ahead and put up Robert Oswald. This is, Robert Oswald, who certainly was no brother to Lee Harvey Oswald. I mean, when you think about it, Gary, he goes to the jail and his brother has, been accused of killing, 2 men. You would think the first thing he would say to him is, look, Lee, are you all right? All right, now I'm going to go and hire you a lawyer. I am going to get us the best lawyer I can. Keep your mouth shut. Tell him you don't want to say anything until your lawyer's here. So all you have to do, I'm going to get you a lawyer. I'll be back with your lawyer, before the day is out. But, and if Oswald tried to say anything like, well, I want to get Apt from New York, a good brother would have said, shut your trap. You're not waiting for a New York lawyer. You need a lawyer right now. You need a Texas lawyer. And that's what I'm getting for you. So you just, zip it, little brother. I don't want to hear that again. I mean, that's what a real big brother would have done if he was really trying to help. So this guy was a complete, total traitor to Oswald. But anyway, again, I want you to notice that, he's got 5 fingers. He's got this little thumb. And it looks nothing whatsoever like that humongous thumb that you're seeing on the left here. And that supposedly they're brothers, full brothers. So why would there be that much difference, between
Robert Oswald?
That's Robert Oswald. That's right. I think, I forget what he was testifying for, but that is Robert Oswald. All right, let's go to the next image.
Yeah, he sold his brother out big time.
Big time. All right, now I'm very glad I brought this image. There's a guy I have to thank here. He's one of our members, Craig Roberts, great man. He's the one who first noticed that. He's the one who figured out the puzzle. He basically solved the conundrum, and that is that what we're looking at here on the right is actually 2 arms, 2 forearms, and 2 hands. And it's really 2 hands clasped together, somewhat like hands clasped in prayer. So I brought this one here on the side. Obviously, he's got the fingers bent and he's got the thumb pressed over, but nevertheless, it's close to that. So if you look at it with that perspective in mind, what we're really seeing is we're seeing a right shirt cuff, or a margin of the shirt, and then we're seeing the left shirt cuff, and then we're seeing the hand is sort of sideways. The hand is sideways, kind of like this, and then he's got the other hand. Well, it's hard for me to duplicate right here, but basically that's what we're seeing there is a right hand clasping a left hand with the right thumb pressed to the left index finger. And that is really what that is. It is not a hand, it is 2 hands clasped together. And I don't have any reason to think that either one of them are Oswald's hands. So in other words, Oswald wasn't really doing that. They decided afterwards to do that. And they basically pasted all of that into the photograph.
All right, so are they doctoring these photographs to go along with the dialogue provided by Lavelle and others?
Well, I think that they doctored this photograph because when it was taken, Oswald wasn't really shot, so there was no hole in him. There was no hole in his sweater, and so basically, and there was no blood anywhere. So they basically had to just slap things around so that it provided an excuse for the fact that there's no sign of trauma or disruption. So that's why they did these things. And that's why I say, to me, the very existence of this highly altered photo is proof that Oswald wasn't shot, because if he was shot, then there would be no need to alter anything. That what you see is what you get. You could just take the picture and you'd have it. So we've got this man here who's been fatally shot, and yet we don't see the slightest sign of blood. We don't see the slightest sign of trauma. We don't see the slightest tear in his clothing, and that's because everything has been covered up by hands and arms and whatnot, and this is why they did it, because of the fact that really nothing happened. Okay, go to the next.
Did Oswald think that he was possibly going to be able to sip Mai Tais in Tahiti?
Well, here's what I think. I think that they must have said to Oswald, they said, well, you know, Lee, all right, we believe you. And they keep in mind that Oswald may have started dropping names of like intelligence people that he knew. He might have said, check with so-and-so, he knows me. Check with the other guy, he knows me. He'll tell you I'm, a good guy. I'm not somebody who would ever try to kill the president. I'm an intelligence guy. So I think, and nobody, of course, they didn't write any of that down. We didn't get any such, feedback from them. But I think what they said to him was, look, Lee, we believe you. And we're going to get you out of this, but we have to fake your death because there's thousands of people out there who want to kill you, and they're going to come looking for you. You're not going to be safe. You're going to be a dead man if we just release you. So we have to send the message that you're already dead. We have to send the message that you died. Then we're going to sneak you out of here. You're going to get a new identity. You're going to get we're going to send you, maybe they said they'd send them out of the country. I'm sure that they probably told them, look, after a time passes, we'll get you connected with your family. We'll sneak them out too. They probably told them something, but they said, if you want to live, you've got to be, Lee Harvey Oswald's got to be a dead man, because otherwise you're going to be tracked for the rest of your life. So I think that's what they told him.
Now, what about the possibility of running a couple of drills, telling the police officers down there, said, look, we're going to go through it a couple of times.
Well, that's possible too. Who knows how many? They may have had several dry runs. None of them were professional actors. It's not as though they ever did something like this before. So yes, it's very possible.
A drill where they're going to act like here's how we're going to do it when we exchange Oswald, and everyone was doing their thing.
Well, one of the things that really struck me eerily is that at the very beginning of the footage, when they start coming out, that Lavelle comes out before the trio. And when I say the trio, I mean, of course, Lavelle, Oswald, and Graves. But as Fritz was coming out, momentarily he stopped and he turned around and he looked at them. And my sense was it was almost like a procession in a wedding. Like where he was looking back saying, all right, they've started playing, the wedding march, so okay, I'm going to go now. You got to follow me, and this is it now. This is the big moment. And as Fritz is walking out, to me it looked like he was just, I don't know, marching down the aisle or something. It just looked very, very starched and
Fritz,
natural, and like he was, I don't know, putting on airs. So anyway, let's go to the next picture.
Yeah, Fritz looks like he was dancing in a ballerina outfit. Open. There we go.
All right, anyway, this is the full image of Oswald and Marina in Russia. And I just wanted to show you again that, he had 5 fingers, 5 knuckles, and a relatively small thumb. There was nothing humongous about it. There's no way it would have been photographed the way we see it in the Jackson photo. So I don't know whose thumb that was. It was not Oswald's. Okay, go to the next.
This one here?
Yeah, all right. Briefly, this is just a comparison now again of Oswald's real thumb on the left and this humongous monster thumb on the right from some guy who really was just huge. And it is definitely, absolutely, and positively not Oswald's thumb or even his hand. Okay, keep going. All right, now this is the first frame that I brought, which shows Oswald reacting to being shot. Now, I want you to notice the angle that he's shooting into Oswald's side, and it's very different from the Jackson photo. Remember, in the Jackson photo, he's pretty much facing Oswald. His back is to us, but in this frame,
he's shooting from the side.
He's shooting from the side, and that is how the shot was done. It definitely was done from the side. And you can see that Oswald is grimacing. He's got a pained look on his face. He's definitely been shot. This is not before the shot. This is him reacting to being shot. And I want you to notice that it looks like he's cringing, meaning that he's kind of beginning to collapse. Now, keep in mind, I want to repeat what I said before, that this bullet went into him. It was his left side, so, it went through his stomach. It went through his pancreas. It blasted through his aorta, his vena cava. It went through his right kidney. It went through his liver. And it is just devastating him. He is a disaster now. And what I would expect from a guy who received such a wound is for him to just go down, to just lose it. I mean, he's got no blood pressure anymore, okay? His blood is spurting inside his body. He has no intact circulatory system. So how can he do anything? He's going to just go down. So he's starting to go down here, and I would expect him to just collapse, to just continue going down. All right, go to the next picture. All right, but Oswald does not keep going down. What he does somehow is he starts veering back. So he sort of changed his mind, and now instead of cringing and going down, he's actually leaning back and going backward. He's physically going backwards. Now, I can't imagine why he could do that, why he would do that, but more important, I can't imagine how he could do that. Because again, no blood pressure, all his organs devastated. He's in a total state of circulatory shock, and I really don't see how he'd have the energy or the means to do anything, least of all that. So again, this is giving me alarm bells that something's wrong here, that he is able to do this. All right, go to the next picture.
Okay, this one here.
All right, and this is the first image there. See, it gets worse here. Now go to the top. I want them to see where Oswald's face is. Can you see where it's higher, higher, go higher? That's it. Left third. That's it. That's his face. That is Oswald's face. That's where his face is. But go down to where I have it in white. He is now up on his toes. Oswald is standing on his toes, both toes. He's got his heels raised high off the ground, and he is standing on his toes. Now, I want you to know something, that it's not easy to stand on your toes. I mean, if you're healthy, you can do it. But neurologically, it's not easy. There's a lot involved. And I'll tell you something, that doctors, especially neurologists, but even any doctor really, even a GP, even a lowly chiropractor like me, that it's considered a neurological test of a person to just ask him or her to stand on his toes. If the person can stand on their toes, it's telling you a lot. It's telling you that their balance mechanisms are still working, because you have to do a lot of balancing to stand on your toes. Normally, when you're standing on your foot, it's like a tripod, and you know how stable a tripod is. That's why they make, photographic tripods. They give them 3 legs instead of 4. If they gave it 4 legs, it might, rock. But with 3 legs, it's solid. It's standing firmly on the ground. Well, that's how your foot is, because, your foot is arched, and you really have just 3 points that are taking the weight: the 5th metatarsal, the 1st metatarsal, and then the heel. So you've got a tripod there. But when you go up on your toes now, okay, now you're balancing. You're perched up there. And it takes muscular strength. It takes the integrity of all those spinal nerves coming out of your back. And it takes a lot of balancing mechanisms up above. So, yeah, you got a lot of neuromuscular activity going on to do it. And here we got Oswald doing it, even though he's been shot to hell inside. Doesn't seem right to me. All right, go to the next one. I brought several more. I think I brought 2 more of him. Oh, good. It looks like we're going to get through these. So, all right. All right, so look how high he, now in this photo, he's standing, he's like doing a pirouette. He's like a ballet dancer.
A lot of ballerina moves in there.
Way up. Let me tell you, there's a lot of people who couldn't stand that high on their toes. I mean, that is really getting up there. Man, he is practically going off the ground there. In fact, go to the next one. I think the next one, okay, now this one, I'll tell you why I brought these. What happens next to Oswald is that he goes down, and I say down, straight down. He just literally, it's like he's sucked into the ground. He just vanishes. He just falls faster than an object could fall. Now, I don't want to give anybody a physics lesson, but you realize that there is acceleration involved with falling. It takes time to actually get up to full, what they call terminal velocity, which is the fastest rate that a person falls. You don't fall any faster than terminal velocity because the friction in the air kind of slows you down and you just can't fall any faster. But it takes a while, and as you start falling, you're not falling that fast. But Oswald in the film, he just falls straight down. And I really think that they edited the film and they just wanted to get rid of him. They just wanted to get him out of view. And they must have removed frames to make him vanish. The way I like to put it, he went down like a freight elevator at the TSBD. But actually, he went down a lot faster than that. So go to the next one and you'll see how it looks.
Okay, which one next?
No, below that. There you go. Now you notice that he looks blurry there. And that's not any mistake on my part. The reason, go ahead and just kind of run the arrow over him. Yeah, okay, that's him. He looks very blurry. Why does he look blurry? It's because he's moving so fast that when I stopped the YouTube video to freeze the frame, that it blurred because he was moving so fast. And it's because they must have done something to speed up the rate at which he was falling. That was as fast as I could, that was as good as I could get him in terms of clarity. So he's going straight down here. So he's doing all this acrobatic activity. He goes forward, he goes back, he goes up on his toes, and now suddenly it's like he gives up the ghost and he goes straight down. All right, so go to the next image. All right, now it's even more blurry, and he is really swish, just going straight down now. And that really, I'm pretty sure that's the last that we see of him. If you go to the final image, you'll see that he's gone. All right, well, he's either gone or maybe he's there, but he's so faint that we can barely see him. But basically, he's gone. Basically, we're not going to see him again. He's going straight down. And basically what happens is this. I mean, this is according to the story anyway, is that he goes straight down. And, you know, if a person just say, you know, falls because they're suddenly dead, what happens is now you're just a gravitational object, and you're going to fall, and your knees are going to bend. And what's most likely to happen, I would think, is that you would just fall down, and your knees would hit the ground, and then you would either fall forward or you would fall sideways. And I think those options are much more likely than falling back. I think, you know, because a human being has a lot of natural forward inclination, because the weight of the head is forward of the body, and there's a lot of leverage involved. So yeah, I think you would more likely go forward. But we don't get to see what happens. The only thing that we get to see a glimpse of is him lying flat on his back, all stretched out. Now, how did he get that way? I wouldn't expect a guy to get that way. I would expect him to just be kind of like a lump. In other words, just sort of squished together and just sort of, you know, just, I don't know, like a sack of potatoes, just all crumpled to get up. For example, I'll give you an example. When Reagan's bodyguard got shot and he went down to the ground, he was all crumpled up. I forget his name now. I should have remembered it, but he's not all stretched out. He's crumpled up. But Oswald somehow gets all extended, and he's all lengthened on the ground.
Yeah.
Now, what happens there? I don't know who that guy is.
If he knows
Lavelle. This is Lavelle.
And nobody knows who this guy is?
I don't know. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I'm assuming he's a detective, but I don't know who he is.
Yeah, he's looking straight at Bookout.
What happens next is just plain weird. What happens next, and I didn't bring any more, but you might as well leave this up. But what happens next is that Bookout, he dives into this swarm of men. They don't have to go to him. He goes to them. He literally dives into them, and then they swarm upon him, and they're all on top of him, and it's what I call the penguin picture. They're all on top of him. And then they start dragging him away. You see them moving away. And Lavelle can't go with them because he's handcuffed to Oswald, who's lying on the ground. So Lavelle has to see them go. So they're taking Bookout away, and presumably they're taking him back into the building. And meanwhile, we lose sight of Lavelle and Oswald. We lose sight of Bookout too. And the only thing we see after that is just a bunch of wild pandemonium. We see men scurrying around. We see lots of backs. We see lots of what I call screenshots, where somebody's back just takes up the whole screen, where all you see is a back. And all of that, I think, was done on purpose, just because they don't want to show us. And that goes on for almost 10 seconds, where all we're seeing is just wild pandemonium, and it's all noise. It's just all noise. And
right, but I don't think that they wanted half of these detectives to know who that was either. And that's why they threw the bag over it. See, most of the people...
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's right. Well, I didn't bring it this time, but they throw a bag. Well, Gary, what happens is his hat comes off. His hat pops off. Obviously, Bookout without a hat is Bookout. So his hat pops off, and that's when this guy puts something over his head, because they knew very well that they didn't want Bookout to be, seen.
Recognized.
All right. So now, by the time the situation clears, both Bookout and Oswald are gone. They vanished. They're just gone. We don't see how they were brought in. Now, we were told by Lavelle afterwards that he and another detective picked Oswald up and carried him into the building. Now, I've thought about that, and the only thing I can imagine is that one guy grabbed Oswald's two arms, an arm in each hand, and the other guy grabbed Oswald's 2 feet, not his legs, just maybe had his feet nestled in his forearm, and they just, he kind of picked him up by the ankles. So one had his wrists, the other had his ankles, and that they carried him into the building. But, that's a terrible thing to do to a person who's had a gunshot wound, because it puts a lot of pressure on the area that's been shot. I mean, when the gunshot wound is to the abdomen, and it's very likely to even increase the bleeding. So what they should have done is just left him there. If they had to move him, what they should have done is gotten a firm surface, like even taking a door down from the hinges and just sort of sliding him onto the door and then picking up the door. Because once he's on the door, it's like he's not being moved at all. I mean, that's his world now. And then you could safely move him. So, but moving him, the way they did, no, that was wrong. But, I'm not really buying any of it. I think it's far more likely that Oswald wasn't shot, and that once they had all these curtains in place, that, Oswald probably just, they protected his visibility, but Oswald probably just kind of got to his feet, but remained ducked and just scooted into the building himself. That's what I think happened. And then, once inside, I think somebody probably grabbed him, and they probably were ready with some chloroform and just knocked him out. And then they, could do whatever they were going to do to him. I'll tell you what, how much time have we got, Gary?
Probably about 10 minutes or so.
All right, good. All right, let me tell you something, because I want to think out loud here. But there was a medical student by the name of Bieberdorf who worked there as a first aid guy at the Dallas jail. And he wasn't really in the garage during the shooting. He was somewhere else in the jail, but he heard the blast. So he came out there, and it sounds like he spent several minutes just kind of looking around, I guess seeing if anybody needed help or something. Several minutes passed, and then, according to him, he went into the building, went into the jail. And he claimed that when he went into the jail, that he saw Ruby lying on the ground, handcuffed. And then he also saw Oswald lying on the ground, not far from him. And he said that somebody had pulled up Oswald's shirt. So in other words, his shirt was showing. Somebody had left his shirt pulled up. And that he claimed that he could plainly see Oswald's wound. He said he saw the hole in Oswald's rib cage. That's what he claimed. So, if that's true, and this guy was at the time, I think, a 25-year-old medical student, and I'm not going to assume that he was lying. It's possible. But if he wasn't lying and he really saw, and he's a medical student, so I'm presuming that he knows what a wound looks like. So I'm thinking that they must have taken Oswald to some soundproof room. He's probably already unconscious from chloroform. And they must have laid him on I'm thinking they laid him on a table maybe, and they had a gun with a silencer, and they just put it on his rib cage, and they just shot that slug right in there on the left side of his rib cage and created that wound. And then after that, I think that they checked it and made sure that it was clean. They didn't want it bleeding. I mean, they might have even held pressure to it to get the external bleeding to stop, because they didn't want it to be, messy, since it wasn't messy in the garage. And then they brought him into the garage and lied him down and they pulled his shirt up precisely because they wanted Bieberdorf to see the wound, so that he would later say, yeah, he had a wound there. Now, Bieberdorf also rode to the hospital. He was the closest thing to a doctor that they had. So he rode to the hospital, and he rode to the hospital with the two attendants, and with Oswald, of course, and then with three detectives. Oswald's two escorts, Lavelle and Graves, and Detective Doherty, who was the one who was supposed to, he was going to be the one who was supposed to drive Oswald to the county jail. So there were three detectives in the car, and then two ambulance drivers, and then Bieberdorf. Now here's what's weird, and this will be an intriguing point to leave it on. He made an initial statement to the Dallas police at the time this happened. And then he spoke to the Warren Commission. And when he spoke to the Warren Commission, he said he wanted to clear something up. He said, I want to make it clear that the Detective Lavelle was sitting with me in the middle seat of the station wagon. So remember, this was like you might say it was like a station wagon that had, two rows, two bench seats, the driver and the front seat, and then this middle seat, or you might say a second seat, and then you've got the long carriage area for where the stretcher was with Oswald. So what he claimed was that Lavelle was sitting in that middle seat with him, and that in back with Oswald were the other two detectives, who were Doherty and Graves. He wanted to be sure that the Warren Commission knew that that was the arrangement. So they said, okay, if you say that was the arrangement, that was the arrangement. But that was not the arrangement. And the way we know that is because we have the films. And we can see Lavelle getting into the back of the station wagon. He crawls into the back of the station wagon as they're putting the stretcher in. So Lavelle was definitely in the back of the station wagon with Oswald. And he remained back there because when the ambulance gets to Parkland Hospital and they open the back of it, the first thing that you see happen is Lavelle getting out. And we know it's Lavelle because he wore that Easter suit, that bunny costume. And nobody else was dressed like that. So he got into the back and he came out of the back. So the question is, why did Bieberdorf lie and say that Lavelle was sitting in the second seat with him? He wasn't. Lavelle was in the back. So it makes me wonder, maybe was something, did Lavelle do something to Oswald when he was back there, and was he trying to cover that up? I mean, this is all speculation at this point. I mean, the only thing I know for sure is that Bieberdorf lied when he said that Lavelle was riding with him in the middle seat. And, but was he lying when he said that Oswald was already shot when he went into the jail station? So anyway, the only thing I feel confident about is that Oswald was not shot in the garage. He was either shot in the police station or he was shot in the ambulance. I mean, I'm kind of going on the assumption that he probably was shot in the police station. That right now is at the top of my speculative list. But from everything I've shown you tonight, I am very convinced that the only reason they had to create all that phony photographic mirage in the Jackson photo is because Oswald was not really shot there, and that he was shot elsewhere. But I'm absolutely positive that he was shot. I'm absolutely positive that he is dead. I'm absolutely positive that James Bookout was the one that we see in the footage doing the shooting. And I am absolutely positive that Jack Ruby didn't shoot anybody. that poor schmo was just talked into thinking that he had done something when he did not, and that he is just as much a patsy as Oswald is.
Oswald.
So anyway, these are the reasons that I think those things that I am, awfully confident on all of them. So is there going to be a show next week then, Gary?
Yeah, we'll be doing them once a week all the time.
All right, very good.
Bringing up the new research, and we'll keep bringing it out.
All right, thanks so much for having me tonight. I appreciate it.
All right, this is the new JFK Show number 124. Dr. Ralston K. More and more and more new research from Ralston K. We'll see you next week.
Good night.